3:17 a.m., the alarm shattered the silence of the British Embassy in Vienna. Hostage situation. A gunman, a diplomat, and a single petrifying demand. Security swept the halls, evacuating staff, shouting at the cleaning woman in the gray uniform to get out. She dropped her mop and ran straight toward the crisis. Her name was Anya Petrova, a 32-year-old contract cleaner from the agency. To everyone in the embassy, she was invisible. But in the next 4 minutes, she would do what a trained security team could not. And when MI6 reviewed the security footage the next morning, they found no record of her employment. They found no record of her at all. The contractor listed on her badge, Vienna Cleanco, had no employee named Anya Petrova. The woman who clocked in that night used a badge that shouldn't have worked. The woman who neutralized a trained operative moved with a fluency that doesn't come from mopping floors. This is where the file begins, not with a hero but with a ghost. The British Embassy in Vienna is a fortress of quiet diplomacy. Marble hallways, oil paintings, and layers of security both visible and unseen. On the night of March 12th, it housed a single high-value asset, Sir Alastair Finch, a diplomat engaged in back-channel negotiations regarding Eastern European energy sanctions. At 3:17 a.m., a man named Gregor Volkov, a dismissed embassy security contractor with a grievance and a stolen passkey, entered the residential wing. He was armed, desperate, and he had one demand: safe passage to a non-extradition country, or Sir Alastair would not see the sunrise. Standard protocol activated. Secure the principal, isolate the threat, evacuate non-essential personnel. This is where the script broke. The security team, led by a former SAS officer named David Clark, had the hallway contained. Communications were established. Volkov was barricaded in a study, his voice crackling over a radio, erratic but trained. He knew their procedures. He knew their blind spots. Clark requested authorization for a forced entry. London said no. The political fallout of a dead diplomat or a firefight in an embassy was unacceptable. They were ordered to wait, to negotiate. But Volkov wasn't negotiating, he was counting down. And that's when the cleaning cart appeared at the end of the hall. Anya Petrova pushed it slowly, head down, earphones in. A security officer, his weapon drawn, waved her back violently. "Get out! Evacuate now!" Anya looked up, eyes wide with the appropriate fear. She nodded, turned her cart around, and disappeared around the corner. Clark's focus returned to the door. 30 seconds later, the lights went out. Not in the whole embassy, just in that wing. A localized hard cut to the grid. Emergency strips flickered on, casting long shadows. Volkov's voice shouted over the radio, confused. Clark's team tightened. Then came the sound, not a gunshot, a thud, solid, heavy, like a sack of grain hitting the floor. Then silence. Clark made the call, breach. The door wasn't locked. It was slightly ajar. Inside, Sir Alastair Finch was tied to a chair, unharmed, face pale with shock. On the floor beside him lay Gregor Volkov, unconscious, a thin line of blood trickling from his hairline. His weapon was gone. The window was closed. The only other door to an adjoining bathroom was locked from the inside. And sitting on the desk, placed neatly beside the radio, was a master keycard for the embassy's service elevators. The one Volkov had used. The one he shouldn't have let out of his sight. Clark's first thought was a second assailant, a rival, a double-cross. He swept the room. The bathroom was empty, the small window locked. The ceiling tiles were undisturbed. It was an impossible room. Sir Alastair, when he could speak, said the lights went out. He heard a scuffle, too fast to follow. A gasp. Then the lights came back on and Volkov was on the floor. He never saw who did it. The security footage from the hallway camera told a stranger story. It showed Anya retreating around the corner. It showed the lights cut. But for 3 seconds during the blackout, the camera's low-light mode activated. And in those 3 grainy, green-tinted seconds, it captured a single frame. A figure in gray, moving low and fast across the hallway, not away from the study door, but toward it. A figure that matched the build, the uniform, of the cleaner they'd sent away. The next morning, the inquiry began. MI6's station chief in Vienna, a woman known only as Chief Walker, took personal charge. The priority was damage control. A narrative was crafted, a heroic security team intervention. Volkov was quietly rendered to a black site. Sir Alistair was debriefed and reassigned, but Walker couldn't let the anomaly go. She pulled the personnel file for Anya Petrova. It was perfect. Too perfect. Austrian national, born in Graz, clean criminal record. 2 years of employment with Vienna Clean Co. The photo matched the woman on the tape, but when Walker's analyst dug deeper, the cracks appeared. The social security number was active, but it was only 2 years old. The apartment listed in her file was a rental, paid in cash, now empty. The phone number was a prepaid burner, last pinged a tower near the embassy at 3 a.m. and then gone. Vienna Clean Co.'s manager, when interviewed, recalled Anya as quiet, efficient, always on time. He couldn't remember who hired her. The paperwork, he said, was handled by the agency's head office. The head office had no record of her application. Walker then did what she was trained to do. She looked for the absence of something. Everyone leaves a digital footprint. School records, medical visits, tax filings, social media. Anya Petrova had none before 2 years ago. It was as if she had been created, fully formed, and inserted into the world with a mop in her hand. And then Walker ran the hallway capture, the single low-light frame, through a classified facial recognition system not listed in any budget. The system didn't search police databases. It searched something else. A registry of faces from conflict zones, from declassified surveillance ops, from the margins of intercepted communications. It returned one result: 92% confidence. The match wasn't to a cleaner. It was to a photograph taken 7 years earlier in a city neither British nor Austrian. Donetsk, Ukraine. The picture was grainy, taken from a rooftop across the street. It showed a woman leaving a shelled-out administrative building. She was wearing civilian clothing, but her posture was rigid, her eyes scanning the street not like a victim, but like a predator. In the background of that photo, blurred but identifiable, was the symbol of a volunteer battalion known for its ruthless efficiency and its mysterious unnamed specialists. The file attached to that image was thin, code name only. Malianki dodged, Little Rain, alleged affiliation, signals intelligence and direct action, status unknown, presumed KIA in the conflict's later stages. Walker stared at the 2 images on her screen, the terrified cleaner, the ghost from Donetsk. They were the same person, and that meant the incident in the embassy wasn't a lucky break. It wasn't a cleaner's bravery. It was a sleeper agent buried deep under a constructed identity who had just broken cover in the most dramatic way possible. But for whom? And why? The activation of a sleeper is never an accident. It is a deliberate pull of a trigger. Someone somewhere had given Anya Petrova a reason to stop being invisible. And as Walker drafted her encrypted report to London, a single, chilling question formed. If Little Rain was here in Vienna, then who was she really working for? And what was her mission supposed to be on the night everything went wrong? Walker's encrypted report landed in London at 6 a.m. local time. By 7, every line of text had been scrubbed from the system. Not archived, erased. The only response was a single cryptic directive: stand down, asset is not ours, do not pursue. But Walker had already seen the ghost, and ghosts don't just disappear. She kept a local copy, a breach of protocol that could end her career. She had to know. The order to stand down meant one of 2 things. Either Anya Petrova was an agent of an allied service, and her cover was so deep that even MI6 wasn't read in, or she was something far more dangerous: a rogue element. A ghost from a burned program that no one wanted to acknowledge. Walker's first move was to bypass official channels. She reached out to a contact in the BND German intelligence with a sanitized query about Eastern European volunteer battalions and their dispersal after the Donbass conflict. The answer that came back was not a file, but a warning. The battalion you reference was not a militia, it was a cover. A testing ground for deniable operators. Many were absorbed, many were disappeared, do not dig here. The warning only fueled her. She turned to the one piece of physical evidence, the empty apartment. It had been cleaned professionally, not a fingerprint, not a hair. But in the tiny bathroom inside the toilet tank, Walker's analyst found a false compartment. Empty. the mold lines in the porcelain showed something rectangular had been stored there, something roughly the size of a passport or a small radio. Anya had a go bag, and she had retrieved it. This changed the timeline. She didn't flee in a panic, she executed a planned disappearance. The hostage event was the catalyst, but the escape route was pre-prepared. This was the work of a professional who expected to be blown. Walker now had two parallel investigations. The first, who was Anya Petrova really? The second, what was she doing in the embassy that required a pre-stashed escape kit? The answer to the second question, she hoped, might lead to the first. She pulled the embassy's access logs for the entire week. Not just the main doors, but every server room, every archive, every comms closet. Anya's keycard, the one registered to her cleaning identity, showed a pattern. She cleaned the same offices on the same schedule for months, except for one night. 3 nights before the hostage situation, her keycard was used to enter the subbasement at 1:18 a.m. The subbasement housed the embassy's legacy communications hub, a relay station for encrypted diplomatic cables that was scheduled for decommissioning. The logs showed she was in there for 4 minutes. The security camera for that corridor had been offline for maintenance. Convenient. Was she planting something, retrieving something, sending a signal? Without the camera, it was a ghost entry. But then Walker found the anomaly. The night of the hostage crisis, Anya's keycard was used to exit the service entrance at 3:05 a.m., 12 minutes before the alarm sounded. But the hallway camera showed her pushing her cart toward the residential wing at 3:10. Either the log was wrong, or someone else had used her card to leave, or Anya had cloned her own badge and given it to an accomplice. The plot was expanding, and Walker was running out of time and authority. That's when she received an unsolicited message. A secure, untraceable line she used only for extreme contingencies buzzed once. A single sentence appeared. She was one of ours, once. The sender ID was blank. Walker typed back, "Who are you?" The response came a minute later. "The man who buried her, and you are digging up a grave that should stay closed." This was her pivot. This was the inside source. She played the only card she had. If she was yours, then she just saved a British diplomat. "Why would you bury that?" The reply was immediate. She wasn't there to save him, she was there to kill him. Walker's blood went cold. The words hung in the air of her secure office. Sir Alastair Finch, the back-channel negotiator, the man she was ordered to protect. According to this ghost in her machine, he was the target. The hostage situation wasn't the mission. It was the obstacle. Anya's activation was an assassination, but something went wrong. Volkov, the disgruntled contractor, moved early. He took Finch hostage, complicating the kill. Anya's orders would have been clear: eliminate the principal and vanish. But with Finch held at gunpoint by a volatile third party, the calculus changed. Did she abort, or did she improvise? The evidence suggested the latter. She neutralized Volkov, left Finch alive, and disappeared. Why? Why spare the target? The ghost in the machine provided one more piece. Finch's negotiations were not about energy. They were about tracing the financial network of a specific oligarch, a man with deep ties to Russian military intelligence. Your principal was getting close. Someone wanted him silenced before he could file his report. Walker now faced a terrifying synthesis. Anya Petrova, a sleeper with a past in Ukrainian black ops, was activated to assassinate a British diplomat on behalf of a Russian-linked interest. But at the moment of truth, she switched sides, or she had a change of heart. Or her mission parameters were different than what her handler believed. The why was a black hole, but the who was coming into focus. The ghost sent a final message. They know you're looking. They will clean the slate. Watch your 6. The line went dead permanently. Walker was now alone, holding a theory that implicated a powerful, shadowy network in an attempted hit on British soil, and she had proof of nothing. Just a deleted file, a ghost story, and a missing cleaner who might be an angel or a devil. She made a decision. She would go to the one person who might have the missing piece, Sir Alastair Finch himself. He was sequestered at a safe house in the Austrian countryside under 24-hour protection. Walker drove there alone without logging her movement. She found Finch in a sunlit study, a man trying to project calm while jumping at every creak of the floorboards. She didn't mince words. She showed him the enhanced still from the hallway camera, the figure in gray. "Did you see this person?" Finch studied the grainy image, his face a mask. Then he said something that shattered Walker's theory entirely. "No," he said, "but I heard her. When the lights went out and Volkov was shouting, a voice spoke to me, right next to my ear in Russian." Walker leaned forward. "What did it say?" Finch's eyes were distant, haunted. "It said, 'Be still, this is not your death, yet.'" Then the scuffle. Then the lights came on. Russian, not Ukrainian, the voice was Russian. And the phrase, "not your death yet," wasn't reassurance. It was a threat with a stay of execution. It implied Finch's life was contingent on what Walker pressed. "Did she say anything else after?" Finch shook his head. "No, but when I was untied, I found this." He opened a desk drawer and took out a standard embassy notepad. He pushed it across the table. On the top sheet, in neat, blocky handwriting, were 2 lines. A string of numbers, 79314, and below it a single word, ZATON. Walker recognized the format. The numbers were a file index. Zaton was not a word she knew. She took a picture with a non-networked camera. As she left the safe house, her secure phone buzzed with an alert from her analyst back in Vienna. "We have a hit." Facial recognition on the public camera at the Westbahnhof train station, 2 hours after the incident. "It's her. She bought a ticket." Walker's heart hammered. "To where?" The analyst's voice was tight. "Not a destination, an open ticket east, but that's not the strange part." The system flagged a second face in the crowd, 15 meters behind her, also tracking her. "We ran that face too," Walker already knew. "Volkov?" "No," the analyst said. "David Clark, our head of security." The world tilted. Clark. The former SAS man who led the containment, the man who was first on the scene. He was at the train station, following Anya Petrova after she had supposedly vanished. Why? Was he tracking her, or was he meeting her? Walker's mind raced back to the security logs, the keycard that exited the service entrance. Who had access to clone a card? Security. Who would know the maintenance schedule for the cameras? Security. The pieces began to assemble into a new, more horrifying picture. What if the hostage situation wasn't an obstacle to Anya's mission? What if it was part of the plan? A chaotic cover to allow something else to happen in the embassy while all attention was focused on the residential wing. And what if David Clark wasn't trying to stop it? What if he was facilitating it? She gave the order. "Pick up Clark, now. Detain him for questioning under the Official Secrets Act." But it was too late. 30 minutes later, she received the call. David Clark's car had been found abandoned near the Hungarian border. His service weapon was on the passenger seat. His passport was gone, and a single fresh drop of blood was on the steering wheel. He was in the wind, and with him any hope of understanding the conspiracy from the inside. All Walker had left was a ghost, a notepad, and a code word. She ran ZATON through every database she had access to. It returned nothing. Then on a whim, she ran it through a phonetic translator for Russian. It came back as ZATON. It meant backwater, a sheltered cove, a place to hide a boat. It was also, her search revealed, the name of a district in the city of Novosibirsk, Siberia. And in that district was a defunct textile factory. A factory that, according to a decades-old NATO intelligence report, had once been a suspected listening post. A Cold War relic. Why would Anya Petrova leave that clue? Was it a destination, a warning, or a trap? With no other leads and with her own service ordering her to stand down, Walker knew she had one move left. She had to go off the board. She prepared a dead-drop package. Inside was everything: the Donetsk photo, the security footage still, the notepad clue, her analysis of the keycard logs, and her theory about Clark. She addressed it not to MI6 London, but to the one agency with the global reach and the institutional paranoia to chase a ghost, even if it embarrassed the British government. She addressed it to a specific desk at Langley, Virginia, the Central Intelligence Agency. As she slid the package into the covert diplomatic pouch, she understood the risk. She was inviting the Americans into a British intelligence disaster. She was potentially burning her career. But the ghost of Little Rain was out there, and she had just changed the game. The question was no longer who she worked for. The question was what she knew that was worth killing for. And as the pouch was sealed and sent, Walker realized the hunt was now international, and the hunter had just become the hunted. The package from Vienna landed on the desk of CIA analyst Marcus Thorne 72 hours later. He was a specialist in ghost networks, dormant spy rings left over from the Cold War. As he opened the file, his first thought wasn't curiosity. It was dread. He'd seen this pattern before, and the last time he saw it, 2 diplomats in Belgrade ended up dead. Thorne worked in a vault-like office in Langley, a place where sunlight was a memory. His mandate was simple: track the pieces that didn't fit. The Vienna file was a constellation of anomalies: a sleeper with a Ukrainian battlefield past, a vanished security chief, a cryptic note pointing to Siberia, and a British spy who was so scared she reached across the Atlantic. This wasn't a single operation. This was the frayed edge of something much larger. His first step was to run Anya Petrova's face through every database the Five Eyes Alliance had, including ones the British didn't know existed. The Donetsk photo was a match, but it was the tip of the iceberg. He found another image from a street camera in Minsk, Belarus, dated 4 years prior. She was walking with a man. Thorne's software isolated and identified that man in under 3 seconds. His name was Ilya Vasnev, a former GRU signals intelligence officer, discharged under murky circumstances. Vasnev had a thin file, suspected of selling compartmentalized information to non-state actors. He vanished 2 years after the Minsk photo was taken, presumed dead, until Thorne cross-referenced Vasnev's known aliases with recent border crossings. A man matching his description, using a Lithuanian passport, had crossed into Poland 1 week before the Vienna incident. The trail was warming up. Thorne then decoded the clue from the notepad. Zatyn, the Novosibirsk factory. He pulled satellite imagery of the location from the past 6 months. The factory was a ruin, but infrared scans showed a persistent low-level heat signature in the sub-basement. Not industrial, not electrical, human. Someone was using it as a safe house. And in the week following the embassy event, that heat signature disappeared. Someone had been there and then they were gone. This was a waypoint. A stop on an escape route. But escape to where? Thorne's next move was the riskiest. He activated a single deep-cover asset in Moscow, a man who worked in the archives of the SVR, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service. The query was simple, deniable: any current interest or historical files on the Novosibirsk Zatyn facility, specifically related to personnel reassignment or legacy operations. The answer, when it came, was not in words but in a document scan. A single page from a personnel transfer ledger dated 1998. It listed 12 officers being reassigned from Department Z Zatyn facility to a new unit simply designated Vostok, East. The page was partial, but one name was clearly legible at the bottom of the list: the commanding officer for the transfer, Colonel Anatoly Zykov. Thorne knew that name. Colonel Anatoly Zykov was a legend and a ghost, a Spetsnaz commander turned intelligence theorist in the late 90s. He was the alleged architect of the Sleeper Garden Doctrine, the idea of planting deep-cover agents not for information gathering, but for strategic sabotage, to be activated in the event of a hot war. Zykov had publicly died in a car accident in 2003, but the CIA had always suspected it was a cover. The file from Vienna was now pointing at a phantom, a man who shouldn't exist, running a program that was never supposed to be real. And Anya Petrova, Little Rain, was a product of that garden. But if she was a Russian sleeper, why did she abort a mission that served Russian interests? Thorne went back to the core of the mystery: Sir Alistair Finch's negotiations. He used his agency access to pull the actual diplomatic cables, bypassing the British. The subject wasn't just energy sanctions. It was a specific investigation into a shell company called Nord Stream Holdings AG, which was funneling money to obscure environmental groups, causing delays in Western energy projects. The trail led back to a web of offshore accounts, and at the center of that web was a name that made Thorne's stomach drop: Vostok Consulting, the same designation from the 1998 transfer document. This wasn't an intelligence operation. It was a commercial one. A covert state-backed corporate warfare unit using sleeper agents to manipulate markets and eliminate obstacles. Sir Alistair Finch wasn't just a diplomat. He was a forensic accountant connecting the money to the Kremlin. His death would have buried the investigation. Anya was activated to protect a billion-dollar operation. So again, why did she spare him? The answer came from the last place Thorne expected: the blood on David Clark's steering wheel. His forensics team had analyzed the sample from the photo Walker's people took. It was Clark's blood, but the spray pattern was wrong for a struggle in a car. It was a transfer stain, as if someone with blood on their hands had touched the wheel, and that blood contained a microscopic trace of a synthetic polymer used in only one type of product. Certain high-end, encrypted satellite phones issued to specific tiers of NATO-aligned special forces. Clark had such a phone. But the trace shouldn't have been in his blood unless the phone was damaged and he was injured on it. Thorne requested Clark's service record. The former SAS man had been part of a joint NATO-Russian counterterrorism exercise in Tajikistan in 2012. The liaison officer from the Russian side was a Spetsnaz captain. That captain's name was Ilya Vasnev, the same man from the Minsk photo with Anya. The connection was now a triangle: Anya, Vasnev, Clark. A sleeper, a rogue GRU officer, and a compromised British security chief. Thorne realized Clark wasn't just following Anya at the train station. He was her exfiltration handler. His job was to get her out after the hit. When she went off script and spared Finch, the entire plan collapsed. Clark would have had new orders: terminate the asset. The blood in the car suggested he tried and failed. Anya had turned the tables on her own handler. This changed everything. Anya Petrova wasn't a loyal sleeper following orders. She was a rogue asset cutting her ties, and she left the Zatin clue not for Walker but as a message to her former masters. A message that said, "I know where the garden is." Thorne now faced a decision. He could bury the file to avoid an international incident that would expose a vast Russian covert program and a stunning British security breach, or he could escalate. He chose to escalate. He scheduled a briefing with the Deputy Director of Operations, but as he was compiling his notes, a priority alert flashed on his screen. It was from Signals Intelligence. A burst transmission, highly encrypted, had been intercepted originating from rural Austria near the Hungarian border. It was short, just a string of coordinates and 2 words. The cryptographers broke it in minutes. The coordinates pointed to a forested area 50 miles from where Clark's car was found. The 2 words were, "Garden burned." The transmission was sent using a vintage cipher last known to be used by the Vostok unit. Someone was sending a distress signal or a warning. Thorne diverted a satellite to the coordinates. The image showed a small hunting lodge. Thermal showed 3 bodies inside, cold, no movement, and a single heat signature moving away from the lodge on foot, heading east toward the border. A survivor. Thorne didn't need facial recognition to guess who it was. Anya Petrova was not running, she was hunting, and she had just taken down a safe house. The "wait, it gets worse" moment hit Thorne like a physical blow. He reviewed the timeline: the Vienna incident, Clark's disappearance, now a hit on a Vostok lodge. Anya was systematically dismantling her own network. But why? Revenge? A change of heart? Or was there a bigger target? He re-examined the personnel ledger from 1998. The 12 officers transferred. He ran all 12 names through mortality databases. 11 were confirmed dead in various accidents or from natural causes over the past 2 decades, all except 1. The second name on the list, Captain Irina Volkova, no death certificate, no retirement record, just a blank after 2001. He enhanced the grainy scan of the ledger. Next to Volkova's name was a handwritten notation, barely legible. It said, K9 Protocol. Thorne froze. K9 was not a dog reference. In Soviet-era intelligence jargon, K9 was a code for a specific type of sleeper, a keeper, an agent whose sole purpose was to protect and manage other, more valuable sleeper agents in the field, a handler of handlers, a guardian. Irina Volkova wasn't just another sleeper, she was the gardener, and if Anya Petrova was burning the garden, she wasn't just cutting ties, she was coming for the gardener. The scope of the crisis exploded. This was no longer about a single diplomat or a single embassy. This was about exposing and destroying a decades-old covert infrastructure that spanned continents. Anya was on a one-woman warpath against her creators, and she had just drawn a map right to their door with the word Zatin. She wasn't hiding. She was baiting them. Thorne canceled his briefing with the deputy director. This was too hot, too volatile. Instead, he sent a direct, eyes-only message to a joint task force that operated in the shadows, answering only to the National Security Council. The message contained 3 words: Sleeper Garden active. The response was immediate: contain or terminate. They didn't specify which asset. Anya, Volkova, the whole network. Thorne knew containment was impossible. The garden was burning. The only choice was to control the blaze. And to do that, he needed to find Irina Volkova before Anya Petrova did. He had one lead. The word Zatin was a place but also a command. In naval terms, a Zatinskik was a person who scuttles ships to block a river, to create an obstacle. Anya wasn't pointing to a hideout. She was pointing to a trap. And as Thorne watched the satellite feed of the lone heat signature moving relentlessly east, he understood the final, terrible truth. Anya Petrova wasn't the prey. She was the hunter, and the real mission was only just beginning. The next move would be made not in Vienna, nor in London, but in the frozen silence of Siberia. And it would reveal an enemy within that no one had dared to imagine. The frozen air of the Siberian winter bit through even the best insulation. Inside the derelict Zatin factory, it was 20 degrees colder than outside. Irina Volkova waited, not with a weapon, but with a pot of tea steaming on an old industrial heater. She had known Anya would come. The only question was whether she came to talk or to kill. Anya entered not through the main doors, but through a collapsed section of the roof, moving silently on the steel rafters. She dropped to the concrete floor 10 meters from Volkova, her gray janitor's uniform replaced by Arctic-grade white camouflage. She carried no visible rifle, but her hands were free, ready. Volkova didn't turn. "You took your time," she said in Russian, her voice echoing in the vast, empty space. The Alps were a detour. Anya's voice was flat, devoid of the fake Austrian accent. "You sent Clark to clean up. He wasn't good enough." "Clark was a tool," Volkova said, finally turning. She was in her late 50s, severe, with eyes that held the same calculated calm as Anya's. A useful idiot who thought he was playing both sides. "You were always better." This was the reunion, gardener and flower, creator and creation. Anya remained still. "The Vienna order, it came from you." "It came from the program," Volkova corrected. "The program is a machine. It was designed to remove obstacles. Finch was an obstacle." "To what?" Anya asked. "To the stability of the program itself," Volkova said, pouring 2 cups of tea. "Finch's investigation would have traced the money to Vostok. Vostok would have been exposed. And Vostok is the bank that funds the garden. We cannot exist without it." Anya took a step closer. "So you ordered me to kill a man to protect a bank account?" "To protect a legacy," Volkova snapped. "A legacy that has kept 12 nations in check for 20 years without a single shot fired. Are the deterrent they never see." Here was the truth of the sleeper garden. It wasn't just a spy ring. It was a covert deterrent force embedded in the West, designed to be activated for economic sabotage, infrastructure paralysis, and targeted eliminations to prevent larger conflicts. A doomsday machine hidden in plain sight. Anya shook her head. "A deterrent that kills accountants." "Yes," Volkova said simply. "And you were my finest weapon until you hesitated." Anya's jaw tightened. "I didn't hesitate. I saw the file. I saw the photograph on Finch's desk, the one your intelligence missed." Volkova's calm faltered for a fraction of a second. "What photograph?" "His daughter," Anya said. "She was in the background of a picture from a refugee camp in Poland. She's a doctor. She works for Medicine Sans Frontiers. She was in Donetsk in 2014. She treated one of our unit. She saved his life." The room went silent except for the howl of the wind outside. Anya had seen the photo during her final reconnaissance of Finch's office, 3 nights before the hit. The face of the woman who had saved a member of her own lost unit. The connection was irrational, personal, human. It was the flaw in the machine. "So you spared him because of his daughter?" Volkova asked, incredulous. "I spared him because the program taught me to calculate value," Anya replied. "The value of one corrupt accountant versus the value of a doctor who saves lives. The program's calculus was wrong. My calculus was better." Volkova laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. And now you've come to burn the garden down because of your better calculus. No, Anya said. I've come to prune it. She moved then, not toward Volkova, but toward a rusted control panel on the wall. She pried it open with a blade from her sleeve, revealing not old wiring but a modern server rack, blinking with tiny green lights. The factory wasn't just a waypoint. It was the primary backup server for the garden's entire network, the identities, the missions, the bank routes. Volkova stood abruptly. Don't. You taught me that data is the only thing that matters, Anya said, connecting a small device from her pocket to the server. The garden exists here, in ones and zeros. Without it, the sleepers have no instructions. They become just people. They become targets, Volkova shouted. You're condemning every one of them to exposure and death. I'm giving them a choice, Anya said. Something you never gave me. She pressed a button. The server lights flickered, then went dark. A moment later, they came back on, cycling through a rapid sequence. What did you do? Volkova whispered. I uploaded a worm, Anya said. It will spend the next 72 hours systematically deleting the core files and replacing them with noise. It will also send one secure, untraceable message to each sleeper agent in the network. The message will contain two things: the evidence of their own recruitment file and a set of instructions for how to disappear forever with enough money from the Vostok accounts to start over. Volkova stared, her face pale. You can't, the protocols are already broken, Anya finished. The Vienna incident broke them. Clark's betrayal broke them. My existence breaks them. I'm just making it official. For the first time, Volkova looked old, defeated. They will hunt you. They will hunt every one of them. Let them try, Anya said. The garden is now a field of ghosts, and ghosts are very hard to catch. She turned to leave. Wait, Volkova said, her voice soft now. What about me? Anya didn't look back. You're the gardener. You can stay and watch the weeds grow. She climbed back into the rafters and was gone. Volkova was left alone in the freezing silence, the server lights blinking their slow death dance behind her. 1 week later in London, Chief Walker was summoned to a secure briefing room in Thames House, the headquarters of MI5. She expected to be fired or worse. Instead, she was met by a senior committee from the Joint Intelligence Committee. They presented her with a file. It was a comprehensive breakdown of the Sleeper Garden program, its links to Vostok Consulting, and the financial network Sir Alastair Finch had been investigating. The file was not British in origin. It bore the digital watermark of the Central Intelligence Agency. This landed on our desk this morning, the committee chair said. Courtesy of our American friends, it seems your unsanctioned inquiry has borne unexpected fruit. Walker scanned the document. It was thorough. It named names, listed accounts, detailed methods. It was enough to trigger sanctions, arrests, and a major diplomatic incident. But it contained no mention of Anya Petrova, no mention of a cleaner. No mention of Vienna. The ghost had been scrubbed from the record. What happens now? Walker asked. Now, the chair said, we act on the intelligence, quietly. The garden will be dismantled through financial means. The sleepers, if they exist, will be monitored. But officially this never happened, and neither did you. Walker was offered a promotion and a transfer to a desk in Singapore, far from the action. She took it. It was the only way to survive knowing the truth. In Langley, Marcus Thorne received a final satellite feed. It showed a single figure alone crossing the frozen expanse of the Siberian taiga on skis, moving toward the Chinese border. The figure stopped once, looked up at the sky as if knowing it was being watched, then moved on, disappearing into the white. Thorne closed the feed. He marked the file ARCHIVED, eyes only, no further action. He then drafted a memo to the deputy director, stating that the anomaly in Vienna had been resolved. A training exercise had been misinterpreted. The involved contractor had been dealt with. The memo was a lie, but it was a lie that kept the world from knowing how fragile its security really was. Sir Alastair Finch retired quietly 6 months later. His final report on the energy sanctions was filed and classified. The reforms he advocated for were implemented slowly, without fanfare. He never spoke of the voice in the dark or the note on the pad. He planted a tree in his garden for the daughter who never knew how close he came to leaving her. David Clark's body was found 3 months after his disappearance in a shallow grave in Hungary. The official cause of death was listed as a robbery gone wrong. The blood on the steering wheel was never explained. His file was closed. And Anya Petrova, she vanished. Not into another identity, but into the space between them. The worm she planted did its work. Over the next year, intelligence agencies around the world noted a strange phenomenon, a series of quiet, unexplained resignations from mid-level government and corporate jobs. A banker in Zurich, an engineer in Montreal, a telecom specialist in Tokyo. Each left without notice, their accounts closed, their trails cold. They were the sleepers waking up and walking away. The garden was returning to wilderness. The final surprising detail arrived at Marcus Thorne's desk a year to the day after the Vienna incident. A plain manila envelope with no return address postmarked from Helsinki. Inside was a single photograph. It showed a woman with light brown hair, tied back, standing on a dock overlooking a calm sea. She was wearing ordinary clothes, holding the hand of a small child. The woman was turned away from the camera, but the profile was unmistakable. It was Anya. On the back of the photo in neat handwriting were two words: balance, paid. Thorne burned the photograph. He understood the message. She had traded a life of taking for a life of making. She had saved the doctor's father. She had freed the sleepers. She had balanced her ledger. And she was telling him to let it go. The world would never know the story of the cleaning woman who saved an embassy. It would never celebrate the ghost who burned the garden. Some heroes don't get medals. They get to live. And as the first snows of another winter began to fall from Vienna to Novosibirsk, the silence was not the silence of secrets kept, but of ghosts finally at rest. The curtain was closing. The story was over. But the truth, as always, was far stranger than anyone could have imagined. So what does the story of Anya Petrova, the ghost cleaner, really tell us? It tells us that the most dangerous battles are not fought on battlefields with armies, but in the quiet spaces between the lines of our daily lives. It reminds us that the world of espionage is not just about glamorous gadgets and car chases. Its foundation is the unremarkable person, the forgotten face, the individual who has buried their entire past to become a tool for a cause they may no longer believe in. Anya's journey from weapon to warden, from a sleeper agent to the woman who set an entire network free, is a story about redemption found in the most unexpected of places, within the machine itself. While her specific story is a narrative, the framework is chillingly real. The illegals program, the sleeper agents living next door, the deep-cover officers with false identities, these are not conspiracies. They are documented chapters in the endless, shadowy game between nations. Individuals like Anna Chapman or the 10 agents of Operation Ghost stories lived the first part of Anya's life. They were the plants in the garden. What we rarely hear about is what happens when a plant decides to uproot itself. What happens when the weapon questions the hand that wields it? That is the deeper truth here. Our security, our stability, often hinges on the silent choices of people whose names we will never know, on a conscience that flickers in the dark, on a single moment where someone chooses to save a life instead of take one, thereby rewriting their own destiny and altering the course of hidden wars. Anya Petrova chose to be a person, not a protocol. She chose balance. And in doing so, she didn't just vanish. She transformed. From a ghost in the system to a living, breathing testament that no one is ever just one thing. The cleaner can be a savior. The spy can be a liberator. The weapon can become a shield. The next time you walk past someone in a uniform, doing a job that seems invisible, remember this story. Remember that the most extraordinary strength often wears the disguise of the ordinary. The world is filled with stories waiting to be uncovered, hidden in plain sight. Stories of courage, of sacrifice, of secrets that change everything. If you want us to keep bringing you these deep dives into the untold histories and the shadow wars that shape our world, then do one simple thing. Tap that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support is what allows us to dig deeper, to connect the dots, and to bring the ghosts of history into the light. Thank you for watching.